with you guys tomorrow. They're happy to do it.
Good. Oh, I thought it was going to be on Trace's show. Trace
is going to do it as well later.
With
just Johnny. He doesn't do debates, he just does interviews.
Okay.
But I think it would be really good for them to come on and just like do another session, like following up with what you guys left off, because you obviously can't cover everything. And they need to hash it out too.
Is that me?
Oh, it's a show.
Hello, you there?
Yeah, you guys ready to go?
Yeah. How you sound good?
How do you guys travel with all this?
He made this he made this thing that everything attaches to, and then
Hold on.
We got a bunch of static. What's going on?
We don't have any static.
Test.
Testing 1 2 3. I might have been too close to the mic. I don't know.
Testing.
Whoa, had a bunch of static there.
Still do?
Maybe you're too close.
How's that?
Am I
Still static?
Okay, let's go.
Am I too
All
close?
right.
Am I too close?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on with the VNC here. God, damn it. And there's a bunch of static there on y'all's end. I don't know what's up with that.
It's probably echoey, but should be fine.
Did y'all hear that on y'all's end?
No.
Very mild.
Okay, well, it sounds like a mic connection is loose or something because it's just nothing but static. Here we go, though. I gotta get you on the air.
All right, let's go. Welcome to the Crypto Show on 89.1 FM, the Logos Radio Network. We're coming to you live from the real heart of the resistance, the most dangerous studio on the planet. At Defense Distributed,
static.
home of the Ghost Gunner and the Crypto D&D Studio, where we're printing and milling out freedom, undermining the banks and the man, but having some fun while we do it.
Chief, mate, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Pinky and the Brain, yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice, their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky and the Brain.
Oh yeah. And speaking of brains, plenty of brains where we're at right now. We're coming to you live from Acapulco, Mexico at the 3rd annual Anarchapulco conference. Thanks, Jeff Berwick. And it's been a pretty successful occasion thus far. This is our first live airing from the event, but we did a pre-record debate earlier with Tone Vays and Roger Ver about the future of Bitcoin. So check that out. We're going to have that up at some point. And speaking of Tone Vays, he is actually back to sit in with us for our live show right now. And we appreciate him donating his time to us. He's a busy guy, and we appreciate all he's done because it's not the first time he's done us a favor or two. And we also have Julia Tourianski.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great.
Excellent. Julia is not a first-time guest, but it's been a while.
Yes.
It's been over a year, I think.
Yes, it has been a while.
Why do you hate us? Why has it been so long?
There's another man in my life.
What? No. But you said I was the only one. Actually, she never said that. No woman's ever said that. No, I was kidding. And by that other man, I think it's common knowledge at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a baby boy.
I had a little boy. And he takes up a lot of time, but it's time well spent. And I still put out a video or two a month. Check me out, bravetheworld.com. Same thing you can search on YouTube, Brave the World.
Yeah, and the thing is, even though you've cut back a little bit on putting out on output, there's still so much content from before you had the kid that people can look into and is still relevant today, obviously.
My goal when I started my YouTube channel was to actually not do topical, headliney videos because I wanted to create something timeless. I wanted to create something relevant that people could watch and rewatch and show their friends because it will always be relevant. And
absolutely.
I get a little, I don't get the, big traffic because of that, but people do go back to my videos because they aren't topical.
When I think the traffic, I mean, you're right. I mean, sometimes the big traffic is to be had when you are topical in the moment.
Yeah.
But
you can be relevant without following the headlines every week.
Exactly.
Right. And it's just not something I can do or something I wanted to do. And I think there's plenty of people in the space that do it so well as it is.
That's a really good point. I mean, you could do an excellent job at it, but at the same time, there's so many people who could do as good of a job at it or almost as good a job at it.
They're already doing it. I don't want to do the same thing as everyone else.
Right. Division of labor. Let them take care of that. You stick to your even bigger strengths, which is the grander topics. And I was going to say, like, even though you may not get those immediate numbers, over time, the people who want to know about the big picture and not get caught up in the details of every little news item are going to continue to flow to your website. So it's really a longer term picture for your website as well, as far as listeners, visitors, viewers, that sort of thing.
Definitely. And another fear of mine is getting something really, really wrong because the information just wasn't there. And this does happen, like even with some of my favorite YouTubers or people in the space, they cover the headline, and I'm glad they do, but then a week later new information comes out, and now what they said needs to be different because they weren't informed. It's a problem.
I mean, in a sense, to some extent, it's inherent in the news cycle because you can have even the mainstream news, and not that I necessarily elevate the mainstream news to any special status, but they'll report on an event and not even necessarily a controversial event, and it'll turn out that the initial reporting was wrong or inaccurate in some way. And that's just the nature of news reporting. So rather than get caught up in that,
I just don't want to deal with any of that. I'd rather focus on bigger concepts. And so if anyone's interested in checking out my future work, I'm doing a video series called Soft Science Sophistry with Friends, and it's inspired by a Twitter account called The New Real Peer Review, and it's about the soft sciences and the left kind of versions of academia and how it's degraded. And they're very funny, and Tone and Peter Todd did a show with me, and then I did another show with some friends from New York, and I'm going to continue the series, and that's what I did my talk on, and it went really well. People really enjoyed it, so that was like a huge encouragement to continue going. So next month I will release the first video in the series, and it's hilarious. I'll give you an example. So like some of they're peer-reviewed articles. Some of them are funded by government grants up to, the biggest one I saw was £150,000 for things like a sample pool of 10 gay men from San Francisco reporting on the diverse usage of glory holes.
That's a real one?
Yes.
Even with that terminology, glory holes?
Yes, it's
really.
It's literally
$150,000.
No, that's not the one that was funded that much. The £150,000 one was something to do with a feminist approach to this or that. It's in the video. I have it quoted. I can't quite think of it right now because I filmed it 2 months ago. But there's some funny ones. There's one called Black Anality. And it's someone who, went into debt or received grant money to study the presentation of black anuses in pornography from like a feminist perspective.
This is, I don't think
you can't make this stuff up.
I think even if whatever your perspective, feminist or not, that just seems like a really bizarre.
It's very bizarre. It's a bizarre use of time and money.
Yeah. And a really weird avenue of investigation.
Yeah.
I want to get back to this.
And it's public money. That's the worst part about it. It's grants. It's like government grants for this stuff.
No, Tone, don't you know the government just has this money and can give it away freely.
Right.
But honestly, though, that's how a lot of I would say leftist statists think. Yeah. They don't realize it comes from taxpayers that the government takes from one person, gives to another. Anyway, not to get on my soapbox, but
another funny thing the leftist leaning soft sciences do is there's this whole category of exploring really obvious things. Like one peer-reviewed paper starts with assuming that breastfeeding is natural. So they're questioning the assumption that breastfeeding is natural. And it's like, okay, is like milk coming out of your breasts a social construct? Like, what are you talking about?
It's literally...
It is assumed that breastfeeding is natural, like in our society. I'm like, what? Like, so we need soft science scientists or like anthropologists to study breastfeeding to conclude that it's a natural practice when biologists already know. Like, they just deny like biology or evolution or any kind of natural instincts within human beings. They just deny all of it, and they think everything is constructed by society and a patriarchy.
It's so true.
And a power system. It's
and
insane.
Julia, forget the biology and forget scientists. Mothers know it. Fathers know it. Average people understand it because it's essentially a tautology. In other words, it's like breastfeeding is natural because it is natural. Like, I understand because
it happens, because your breasts fill up with milk after you give birth.
Well, because like you're a physical creature from the natural world. You're a mammal, and you look at other creatures in the natural world, including mammals in your animal family, and that's the same thing that they do. How could it be a social construct then if these other creatures do it that aren't capable of social constructs?
Well, because everything is a social construct.
Oh, yeah. Of course, that's right.
It's like, and their perspective was like, it's heteronormative, and how does like breastfeeding for gay couples and stuff, like as though the world is against gay couples trying to breastfeed. Like, I'm sorry, but like gay men can't breastfeed their adopted baby. Like, what? Like,
natural fact.
Yeah. What? Like, you want us to feel bad about this? I don't understand what the point of this paper is. I don't understand what it's exploring. And like, I could be accused of not being intellectual enough, but the people posting these articles making fun of them are soft scientists who do, because there is some soft science that takes their work seriously, real anthropologists, real sociologists, and they are fed up with the stuff that is diluting their practice and their academia. They're making fun of their own peers for degrading their academic practices to such an extent where you're questioning completely ridiculous, completely normal and common sense things.
Absolutely. We're coming to break. I want to talk more about this since we only have a limited time with you. I want Tone to jump in where he wants to, and I'm going to postpone though getting to some of Tone's topic,
because I got to
just
go
because we have
soon,
more time with him than with you. But we'll be right back after this break. Stay tuned. Tone Vays, Julia Tourianski. We'll be right back after this break.
Keep going. Just assume you're not on break, because currently you're not.
All right.
Well, it says it on the clock, but that doesn't sort of mean anything, right? Well, we also are recording during the break anyway, so I guess it's still fruitful to make a discussion.
Sure.
Tone, I want to get to your stuff, but like I said, we only have a limited amount of time.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm
let's
okay.
do like 5 more minutes with me.
I got plenty of time.
But I do want to. I really am actually fascinated with
Not
this.
really, but.
Well, sorry. Yeah, well,
but it's okay. No, it's fine. We'll do Julia, and then I'll gladly talk to you guys.
But
it's important.
I actually really think this is an important topic because it cuts to the heart of things that I've experienced, or at least, things that I've experienced that I've thought about, and that other people I know have experienced. So, when I was in college, I was in liberal arts, and I still talk to even professors of mine who were in liberal arts. And, of course, academia in general, but the liberal arts especially, are heavily leftist.
Yep. There's a statistic that I read, and it's a man who wrote, oh my goodness, I can't recall the article, but it is in my speech, and I have posted it in the past, and he talks about how you're more likely to be taught by a Marxist than a Republican, like 40-1. The odds are like 40-1.
No, that's accurate because, I've seen documentaries, well-made documentaries that have a lot of references, and admittedly I didn't check the reference, but that 40-1 figure has come up in related documentaries on the politicization of academia.
I would have phrased it as Marxist versus a capitalist instead of a Republican. Because capitalists.
I'm using his words. I'm quoting.
Okay. I would have used capitalist because capitalists are too busy working, and then they don't have time to just sit in academia.
That is a very good point. Well said, Tone. Absolutely. But
the problem too is there is a direct effort to have teachers in academia or professors in academia to have a Marxist slant. They write papers about this, and they encourage other profs to have a Marxist slant. And this is all open. You can read about this. It's not a conspiracy.
It's deliberate. It's open. Although I will say that not every professor necessarily is aware of it. Like they don't necessarily know that what they're being indoctrinated into is Marxism, but many do too. Don't get me wrong.
That's exactly what I was gonna go, and you are probably right. But like I'm a finance guy. I'm a trader. I try to assume that like I don't believe in conspiracies, and like even without that, right? Even without that proof, I would say just by default, you're gonna end up maybe not 40-1, but at least 20-1. Just if there was no agenda, just you would end up with 20-1 socialist professors versus capitalist professors because they're running businesses.
Sure.
I mean, you want to learn
their worldview.
You come
to be a prof.
Right. You come and work for me at minimum wage, and you'll learn more. But people don't want to do that. Just by default, it's going to be 20+1. So I'm with you. Actually, a lot of them don't even realize it.
No, and that's the thing is these things can to some extent be explained without deliberate conspiracy. Now, while I won't say it's a conspiracy, especially if you define conspiracy as secret, there is a lot of documentation from powerful people talking about their attempt to deliberately create Marxism and communism in America. So there's it's both deliberate and accidental. And
some of the peer-reviewed journals and articles that I read for research to do these videos literally are written and things are said in the spirit of we need to fight against a capitalist mindset. We need to collectively overcome capitalism. We need to go from the perspective of Marxism, blah, 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 blah. So it's all open. It's peer-reviewed, and it's become a monoculture. And how can you have the process of peer review is supposed to critically evaluate your peers' work and objectively define standards and have objective critiques. But when all your peers agree with you in your worldview and your political view, it degrades to things like black anality. Okay. I have to go, and if your listeners are interested, I know I'm sorry. If your listeners are interested, I will be releasing a very thorough video series, Soft Science Sophistry with Friends, and you'll find it on bravetheworld.com and my YouTube channel, Brave the World. Follow me on Twitter. I'll tweet it out next month.
And what are you on Twitter? Brave the World.
Brave the World.
Okay. Man, you keep it fresh. This is such a great topic.
I love you guys. I'll come back when I release it. We could talk about it more. All right.
And
gotta go eat.
And since video is running, I'm actually wearing one of Julia's t-shirts, which is also on sale on her website. So
I have your t-shirt underneath this one. You just can't see it. That's what it is. Yeah. Represent.
Thank you, Tone. It's a nice one. So yeah, I feel
that is a
like
good
my
one,
work.
actually.
Yeah, it's Anarchy's order.
Is that still available on your website?
Yes.
I might have to order one.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I have some here.
Do you have any XXL?
I do.
I mean, XXL.
I do. I brought
actually,
one.
You know what?
So you can save
Let
on
me
shipping.
try one on, and I will buy one.
Okay.
Hit me up whenever I see you next. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Well, enjoy
awesome.
dinner.
Thank you so much.
And a great discussion, even though it was short.
I know. I'll be back. We'll do a whole show on this topic. I think that it's entertaining.
No, and it is. And trust me, like there's so much more I could go on with. And
Yeah.
I might spend a couple minutes with him.
Yeah,
finishing
because
it up,
he was. We did an episode with Tone and Peter.
Oh, you did? Oh, you told me about that.
Yeah,
That's right.
So
Yeah.
he has some insights. Okay, take care,
All right,
guys.
get
Thank
outta
you
here.
so much.
Get out of here.
Okay, thank you. If you can text Johnny if you want to come to dinner and find us.
And by the way, if Johnny wants to be on while we're here, not tonight, but I mean like
Tomorrow he'll do a show with Trace and Roger.
Oh, that's right. He's doing that.
Yeah,
I forgot. Okay, awesome.
I don't know if I'll make dinner, Jules. I basically you stopped. You're stepping back from doing content, and I'm stepping into doing content, and it's so time consuming that I'll be here doing video.
There'll be plenty of dinners, plenty of parties, plenty of dinners here at Anarchapulco, everybody. And man, I never heard a beep coming back either. I guess we're good though. Tone, there's so much more relevant stuff we can get to, but and I know you already had a discussion with her and Peter Todd about this. That's so cool, Peter Todd about this. I mean, not that
it's an interesting thing that she was doing. I mean, this isn't really my thing, but what she does is like the camera's on her, and then she has friends there that aren't on camera, and then like she reads the title of some crazy paper that was financed by government money, and the short synopsis in the beginning, and then we just comment on it for like a few minutes, and then we move on to the next ridiculous paper.
That's kind of cool. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, and she tries to get like completely different opinions, and having me and Peter Todd there, probably two of the more like mathematical, logical people there. I mean, this is just was like blowing our mind.
Is he kind of? I mean, he's Canadian. Is he capitalist though? Is he more leaning libertarian capitalist?
He is libertarian capitalist, but Peter Todd is also one of those people. Like, and I do this sometimes as well. Like, we'll like take the counter opinion just to be different.
And I think that's important. I think it's smart because, one, it challenges and refines your own opinions, which is obviously important, but it also allows the audience to hear another side of it and to challenge their opinions, because a lot of them are probably going to agree with you otherwise.
And there's a lot of sarcasm going on in our answers, too.
Heck yeah. Man, I wish I'd been a part of that. And don't get me wrong. I mean, Julia's Canadian, Russian-Canadian, Jeff Berwick's Canadian, James Corbett's Canadian. A lot of good capitalist, libertarian Canadians, but, you know, Canada is still largely a very leftist statist country. So that's why I made that comment.
And how many of them are like trying to get out of there? Berwick already did.
Yeah, James Corbett did.
Julia's on her way out.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter Todd's still there, but he's like me, travels half the world all the time, right?
Yeah, I think even Kevin Trudeau, is it Kevin Trudeau? Kevin Trudeau, the prime minister, I heard, was trying to get out. That's not true, but it would be funny. I do want to just stick on this topic, though, for a few more minutes. And one of the reasons I want to is... Well, one, I really think people don't appreciate when you really do the research like this. And again, it is an organic thing to a large extent. We don't have to go into anything that is more deliberate. It's been going on for 100 plus years, since the beginning of the progressive era in America, really since Marx himself. I mean, ever since Marxism took off in Europe and the Soviet Union, and, you know, that gets into a whole thing of Professor Anthony Sutton documenting how American interest helped finance the rise of the Soviet Union and Bolshevism and supported it. And some of that stuff is even that controversial. But the goalposts have moved so much in this country towards socialism, communism, state interventionism, that people who aren't fortunate enough like us to have awareness of certain ideas or realities take it for granted that this is free market capitalism, and that this is the way it is, and that we don't have enough socialism, and it's crazy.
You know what? I come from a very different perspective, and I know why it's hard, because my family left communist Russia like Julia's around the same time. It was back before the Russia. This is back during the communist era of Russia.
Was this the 70s or?
No, it was late 80s. It was like just around 1990.
Because there were some diasporas, right?
Yeah, well, communism in Russia fell in 1992, and my family got out in very late 1989. So I got to the U.S. in 1990, and I was young. I was around 10 years old or so, maybe a little bit younger. So I was like... I was old enough to have lived in communism, but not really old enough to fully grasp what it was. My sister was older than me, and I spent, high school. When I went to college, and I spent 7 years in a very liberal school, I came out of there. I mean, the first time I ever voted, I voted for a Democrat, and my family was not happy with me, because they didn't like how that turned out, because no Russian that left Russia during the communist days would ever even consider voting for a Democrat. To them, they're just closet communist revolutionists. And it took me a little while to actually see the ways, because I just came. If I would have came to America maybe 2 or 3 years later, it would have been obvious to me. But it wasn't. And I even had, the first 3 years you don't remember, right? But at least I went through 4th grade in a completely communist country, and American 7 years of undergrad, I got 2 degrees in undergrad, that had me going. I was even going to be a high school teacher for a little while. Like I can understand why it's hard. to really understand it. And even for someone like me that had experience of communism.
Right. Even with someone who had the perspective one way or another, your limited experience as a young kid, your parents' experience, your sister's experience, that still wasn't enough at first to show you.
And you really believe those, high school teachers and your college professors over your family.
Yeah.
They are pretty damn convincing.
Because they're the experts, and they are smart by and large, and they do have good intentions by and large. They're not all like out to deceive you. They really believe in what they're selling you.
And this is how I feel about the crypto space. Not to bring this discussion right into the crypto, this is how I feel about most of the altcoins. A lot of them think they have good intentions, but they're complete disasters. They're going to end up losing people money and scamming them, and they don't even realize it.
And we're coming to break, and this episode of the Crypto Show brought to you by Dash.
Perfect segue.
Right. And we'll be right back with Tone Vays. Stay tuned, guys.
We're not.
Are we on break?
Just keep going.
The
commercials
did he
are not.
explain?
Just
still-
keep going.
Okay.
So is there still that sound? Or? Yeah.
Well, in speaking of which, I do want to, since I brought it up, mention our other partners, CryptoCompare.com with the weekly wrap-up in the crypto space, Hill Country Home Improvements for all your roofing needs in Central Texas. They do accept a Dash in Bitcoin. And Bitmain, check out the Bitmain Antminer S9. Go to bitmainwarranty.com. I'd like to thank all of our partners, including Dash and Unsung. .org for helping with feeding the orphans earlier today. You know what? I do want to get to that topic. Actually, I think it's a fair topic. Actually, altcoins. Look, we might have partners with an altcoin, but we're still very, we try to be as open-minded and as fair and balanced as possible. So I actually want to just have a little discussion with you about that.
I'll comment on that because it just happened today. Because look, I might be critical of Dash, and that's fine. I'm critical of Dash, and I think but my opinion aside, look, I'm here on my own trying to do content like you guys, but I have absolutely no funding, and I'm learning this as I go. It's just me, it's a one-man operation, and I have no funding, so it's hard for me to blame you guys, even though I'm not a fan of Dash. It's like, but you're here and you're providing content and you're able to have me on with like high quality equipment because you do get sponsors. And with someone like me, where I would not take that sponsorship, and I'm in a much bigger struggle getting my voice out, because in a way you're like, okay, well, if you Steam, I had the same issue with Steemit. People made over $30,000 posting my content on Steemit. And I refuse to do it because I'm morally opposed to that project. And $30,000 can finance my content creation for 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely. Well,
or more.
And I want to say in response to that, I really applaud you for being true to yourself and standing up for principle. And I want to say that our partnership with Dash, we believe in it in principle. We could be wrong. And that's for us to respectfully agree and disagree, and to have a good discussion about, and we should probably have a general discussion about altcoins here in a minute. But that's one thing I really like about you, Tone, is you, as you stated in our debate with Roger earlier too, you have foregone opportunities, whether it was in the legacy financial system where you used to work and make good money, or with Steemit, like you just said, or other ways. You have done so out of principle, and that is very rare, and that is to be commended, and that gives you a lot of credibility. That doesn't mean you're right about everything. You could be, don't get me wrong, but it gives you a lot of credibility in the space, because few people can say that I have no vested interest per se that is going to lean me one way or another. Like that's a very important thing.
Thank you.
And see, a part of me wants you to have more sponsorships and stuff like that. And I think because you're an intelligent guy and a great content creator, and you really do have very important things to say in this space, I think you're going to get there with your talents. But whether that's sponsorships outright or just ad money or whatever, but I want you to be successful, but at the same time, I like the fact that, and you are successful, don't get me wrong, I like the fact that, to reiterate, you can have such a disinterested stance thanks to your position. Anyway.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And look, I try to do the best I can. And again, I'm fighting my family once again because they were never happy with me quitting my nice high-paying job to begin with, and I'm still getting.
Did they call you a commie?
No. This time it's the other way around. But now I'm trying to be too I'm trying to be too much of an entrepreneur. I swung the pendulum into the other side now, and and then they're still telling me, look, when are you going to start looking for a job again? Like, how long can you do this? How long can you travel like this and really watch where you spend? Because my standard of living dropped probably 75%.
But are you at least having fun?
I'm having a lot of fun.
I know you're working hard.
Other than I've worked harder than I ever have, and I'm enjoying it. I love the fact that it takes me all over the world. So no, I enjoy that. I'm working harder than I ever did, and obviously for now, for free, everything.
Well, Tone, and here's what's great about you is your financial success will come with your hard work and being dedicated to your principles. It will come. It may take some time yet, but it will come. But even if it doesn't come, you can always fall back on your old work if you had to.
Oh yeah, no, I've been thinking about it, and I've been trying to hold out I'll hold out as long as I can. I've already been telling people, look, I'm so close to renting out my apartment because it'll fully cover itself and give
nice
me
apartment too, by the way.
Thank you.
By the way, we've already said it in previous episodes, was nice enough to let us stay at his apartment for the New York City Liberty Fest, and it was a pretty nice apartment, I have to say. And
look, if I'm getting close to struggling covering all my expenses, so I'll rent it out. I'll go to Thailand. I'll rent something out for a few $100 a month, and I'll be happy living on a beach. May not travel as much. I'll still get my content out. I'm trying to hold off going back to work. And honestly, after being in the crypto space, Wall Street isn't that bad. I mean, now that I've seen both sides of the equation, when I was leaving Wall Street, I'm like, oh, they're all scammers. They just want to ruin the financial system. And then I come to the crypto space, and now I run a podcast called Crypto Scam, where I try to expose all of the scams in the crypto world. And on a percentage basis, they blow Wall Street out of the water as far as competency and development, even accidental things and everything getting hacked left and right and all these issues. Going back, I'm like, wow, you know what? 98% of the people on Wall Street, they're pretty damn confident, and they don't want to do anything bad. They think they're doing the best they can. And I've seen that in the crypto space too. People are doing the best they can, and next thing you know, they're running an accidental Ponzi.
Yeah. Well, and especially with, and I don't doubt what you're saying. I mean, the statistics bear you out as far as there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of hacks or scams in the space. OneCoin classically is
BitClub
is everyone's
BitClub.
In BitClub's defense, I don't think they're a scam yet, and I've been meaning to. I've been meaning to talk to Joby privately and maybe publicly. I will be covering cloud mining and his mining as well on my podcast, Crypto Scam, in the near future. And I like Joby, and I know he means well, and but I do need to have a chat with him because I think it's going to end badly.
Well, and it'll be an interesting chat. People should look forward to that. If that happens, I'd like to have you back on maybe to discuss that. I don't want to get too deep into specific people or personalities, and I understand why people do, and it's important. People should be called out if they need to be, but I just don't know enough. I mean, I do tend to have my suspicions, but that's the way it goes.
Right, you depend on other people to do that kind of research and present it, and this is what I'm trying to bring to the crypto space.
No, absolutely.
On your coverage of Dash, what is your criticism of Dash based on your research?
So I have two main criticisms of Dash. One was the way Dash began. Mm-hmm. And again, I showed this. I showed the evidence in my podcast. The way
very kind of a lot similar to Satoshi's wallet.
Not exactly. When Satoshi launched it, no one knew what it was. Not even him. Even he didn't know where it was going to go. And even when he launched it, I mean, maybe the first 30 minutes he had an advantage, but it wasn't that much of an advantage. And other people joined soon after, and back then the token was worthless, and it was worthless for over a year. Nobody knew it was going to work. So it's hard. You can't compare everything that happened after Bitcoin. You can't really compare it to Bitcoin because Bitcoin was first. But after Bitcoin launched, I mean, people had standard procedures, right? Okay, if you're going to launch an altcoin, everyone needs to have a completely fair advantage to mine it from the first second. And that didn't happen with Dash. Now, Dash says it was by accident, but I don't believe them. And the evidence isn't pointing in that direction.
Which evidence?
The evidence that it was stated that it wasn't going to be launched because of a bug, and then the next thing you know, it launches. It creates a very large amount of Dash in the very first hour or two, and it was all mined by one or two people. And again, like, the people in support of Dash will try and be contradicting this evidence, of course. But they mined a lot of Dash. The name of the coin changed the next day. The spec of how many Dash there will ever be created changed the next day. So supposedly, let's even assume this was accidental and not deliberate, and I lean towards the deliberate side. It's accidental, and the lead developer and a few friends ended up with 2 million Dash coins. So please don't quote me on the number, I'm estimating. But they were initially kind of expecting 80 plus million. Okay, so they got 2 out of 80 million, not as bad. But then the next day, the official spec comes out, and there will only be 21 million Dash. And now you say, oh, well, now 2 million out of 21 million isn't as small anymore. And supposedly the community had a vote, and they decided that it was by accident and we shouldn't redo it. Even though originally it wasn't even supposed to launch, they were supposed to wait to make it fair, but they didn't wait. So it caught people by surprise. All these question marks, and well, of course the community of Dash people voted to keep it as is because they had just had all this money. And the Dash token from second one had value, unlike Satoshi's token that was worthless for over a year as it spread around the world. So now they spun the story by saying, well, this turned out to be a good thing because now we have all this money for development. And not only did they have all this money for development, they now also had all this money for promotional. This is how you can be sponsored by Dash, but you can't be sponsored by Bitcoin because guess what? No one has that kind of money to sponsor you with Bitcoin.
To be fair, sure. Bitcoin doesn't have the governance structure though that Dash has, the DAO that allows voting to give money to say sponsorships or whatever.
I'll spin that. I'll spin that in saying, well, aren't these things? Isn't it supposed to be a decentralized currency? Why does it have a governance structure? Why does it have like a say as to? I've never been to a conference that's sponsored by the euro or the South African rand or the Zimbabwe, whatever.
But it is decentralized because people vote on it. I mean, to be fair, you could make arguments that Bitcoin isn't that decentralized, based on Bitcoin Core. I'm not calling out Bitcoin. But my point is like, for one, as one of our guests once said, decentralization is kind of a matter of perspective, for one. Decentralized relative to what? It's not necessarily an absolute scale.
Sure.
And two, full decentralization may not be achievable with any kind of system or any kind of crypto system. So that is to be said, but then also there is voting. There is the masternodes vote in the system, and I mean, I'm sure there's criticisms of that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that's my biggest problem. My biggest problem is what I feel was an unfair launch of the coin, giving people a deliberate advantage. My second big criticism is the masternode system, because to me, a masternode system is a way for them to institute proof of stake. Basically, a bunch of people, again, if I factor in my first criticism, that they got all this Dash unfairly, and then they could no longer compete to mine it because other people are mining it. Well, how do you make more Dash from having Dash? Like, Satoshi can't make any more Bitcoin. He was outcompeted in the mining zone 2 years later. Dash, they were the early creators of Dash got outcompeted for mining early on. So now you sit there and brainstorm, well, how can we continue making money? So to me, that is the motivation behind the masternode system, because they took away half of mining reward and gave it to the master nodes. And who has the most dash? Well, those early guys that made millions for themselves in an unfair launch. And now they're the ones with the majority of the master nodes collecting 40% of the reward for doing nothing.
I'm going to interrupt here real quick.
Sure.
It may not be necessary. We are technically coming to break, so I'm just going to see if the thing buzzes or not. I'm having a feeling it won't, but we'll be right back.
No, we're commercial free.
And there's no buzz. Oh,
No, we're commercial.
Oh, that was a deliberate thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, now I get it.
Okay.
So
Now
go ahead.
Now they're saying that master nodes do these several things, but there are questions whether whether these things are really needed and whether you need master nodes to do it. Because the master nodes are supposed to provide you, more privacy, but the 1,000 locked away Dash tokens, they're not actually used for the mixing. They're just sitting there locked away. So not only do you just earn this giant interest from locking them away, it's a double whammy because it removes Dash from circulation, constricting the amount of Dash on the open market, and therefore the trading that goes on in Dash is significantly restricted and probably causing this abnormal price rise because all this Dash is just not there to be traded. It's locked
I
away.
think the abnormal price rise has a lot more to do with some of the things that have been recently implemented, which a lot of we're actually responsible for.
And if you in our previous debate with Bitcoin Core versus SegWit, when I said I trust the smartest guys in the room in being core developers,
but
they also see Dash as a complete joke, and I outsourced what you just said is a technical reality, and I am not competent technically enough to judge that.
Neither are we. But we do know that it works. It works well.
Well, not many people use Dash, so you don't really know how well it works. It hasn't been stress tested like Bitcoin has. And
you could say that with a lot of altcoins, or most probably.
All. I would say that with all.
That's where I was going. But here's the thing, and I know you could say, well, that's a negative against altcoin, but that's not necessarily. Well, I mean, it technically is they haven't been stress tested, but that doesn't mean that if an altcoin like Dash or other altcoins were to be stress tested, that they couldn't pass that test. That's a very hypothetical statement. Well,
yes.
Let me just say this though. To be fair, everything you've said, to the extent that it's true, and from my own research, I know some of the stuff you've said is true. Some of the other claims you've made, I don't personally know to be true or false, but I trust your research. Now, it's up to...
But is this based on what you've been told, or is this your actual research?
Well, again, I'm not technical enough on that. I was joined by a developer, by a more technical person. Now, this person
I watched
is
that
very
podcast, and he's also
right. This person,
he's also Monero.
Correct. I was going to say that this person is very hated by the Dash community, and they see him as a competitor. But you know what? My podcast isn't a debate, right? If I will do Crypto Scam Monero. It's a little bit harder than to do Dash. I have to actually look at. I can't pick on the people there. I have to actually deal with the code or the economics.
I've tried to reach out to that community and got nothing but crickets.
And if there is a Dash person that wants to technically criticize the code of Monero, I'll gladly speak to that person, take a look at their research. I'm still looking for a co-host to help me do Crypto Scam Monero. And this wasn't meant to be a debate. And you know what? I think someone who's a competitor of yours, I don't even consider them competitors, but let's assume Dash and Monero are competitors. Who's better to criticize the technical aspect of your project than your competitor who's looked into it?
Absolutely, and I think that call out to any technical person in the Dash community should be heeded. I mean, that would be a good discussion to have, whether, if only to illuminate allegations against Monero and and why that, and to back that up or whatever.
Look, I know Monero also had a bit of a problem in the very early launch, and it had a similar issue to Dash, but the difference in the Monero community is that that person was immediately kicked out. And it wasn't as bad as in the case of Dash. It's called an insta-mine, where a bunch of coins get created early on. I have not looked into the details of what happened in Monero. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I will. And it also happened in Monero on a much smaller scale, and that person was immediately removed from that project. And I don't know why they didn't relaunch. I'd have to look into that, and I will. But it just wasn't. It was a slightly different situation.
Yeah. Now, I think for Dash, the community is something that will take it forward. The incentivization of paying people to do these services for them. It's going to take it forward. It's going to create. Right, but it's definitely going to create the service that people need.
But my problem is the paying people. Like, where's the money coming from?
It comes from the block reward. 10% of the block reward. 45% of the block reward goes to the masternodes. 45% goes to the miners. 10% is for the treasury.
Right.
And that's how we're paid.
Right, but also keep in mind that the mining reward for actual mining is now 40%.
45%.
45%. So that means that your coin is 55% less secure as it can be, and that money is being rerouted to early adopters that have the master nodes and money for promotion. And all of that comes at a cost of security.
Okay, that's a fair point, but I would say that an argument has been made that I'm not going to really be able to articulate, that security is not always solely in the hashing power. Now, the fact that I can articulate it, that's going to be a weak point. But two, everything comes with an opportunity cost. I agree that the hypothetical potential security they could achieve is not optimal. I think that you have to look at that in the big picture. One, the security of the system could still be strong, even if it isn't as strong as it could be. Two, you also have to weigh that in the balance of, is absolute maximum security your only goal? And I'm not, in a sense it is, but if there are trade-offs, is it possible to have high security, maybe not optimum security, but high security, and allow yourself to have this system that incentivizes development as well?
We're going to find out. This is why we have so many altcoins.
And
we'll
what
see.
Are the coins not a payment? Are they not a payment network? Is that what Bitcoin is? It's a payment network, right?
Sure.
And this payment network offers customer service,
right?
Which well above and beyond probably all other altcoins and even Bitcoin.
Right, but again, it's the argument that money comes at the expense of security, and we'll see if that model works. I personally believe that it won't, but there's a chance. We will find out.
And obviously security is important. I don't think it's paramount when there are trade-offs, but that's something that we could certainly debate. But it's a very good point that there is none, regardless of what we could say or who is right or whether it's a matter of perspective, there is a less than optimal security that it could have, and that needs to be known and understood. But again, it's a matter of priorities. I do want to really quickly though, as far as the artificial scarcity, now that does seem like a possible or plausible outcome of the masternode system. That it certainly could be contributing to the price. I would say that the price has other factors going for it too. One is I think the belief in Dash based on some of the developments that are coming out of it. Two, the fact that Bitcoin has had a price increase that has brought Dash and some other altcoins along with it. And then three, and this sounds maybe a little contradictory, although it doesn't have to be, it can be contradictory and still true. The fact that Bitcoin is having so many issues of its own, maybe sending some people into alternative currencies as well. So I'm saying, even if there is this artificial scarcity, that may not be the only, that by no means.
And also, that's a proven fact. Right? Roger has proven to us this on his speech that he has diversified a little bit into Dash and some of the other altcoins.
Well, you mentioned earlier not having a problem with $100 transactions. Well, people that can't afford $100 transactions, maybe they need something different.
Perhaps, but again, right, that is a scenario if Bitcoin ends up in a stalemate. That is not a scenario if SegWit adopts a scaling solution.
I don't use Bitcoin for coffee and small transaction. I keep it as the store of wealth, and I use the other coins for the smaller transactions.
Who accepts that? Where are you buying your coffee with a altcoin?
You put it onto a card.
Through an intermediary like Shapeshift.
Well, and to be fair,
we've already actually done quite a few other things as far as getting Dash accepted in quite a few other places. So,
but that's
you're creating your network.
Well, wait a minute. Let's dive into that a little bit. That's because your sponsorship pays you in Dash, so you already have Dash.
Yep.
And if you're going to use it through a debit card, it's going through Shapeshift. So guess what? It's going through Bitcoin.
Okay. Well, no.
Well, not actually, because we've actually got a debit card that is going to integrate Dash directly. So you can put the Dash directly onto the debit card.
The stronger point that I would
make in the U.S.
No. That's fine.
Yeah.
But when you swipe that card, the Dash leaves your card. Do you know where that Dash goes?
Through Visa.
No. When the Visa allows you to swipe the card.
Can you track the Dash all the way through the system?
Like, what happens to that Dash once you pay for that coffee? Do you know where the Dash goes? Because the Dash is going to Starbucks.
Well, okay, here's the thing. This is honestly, I mean, with all due respect to both of you, I think this is a really irrelevant point, and here's why. Because even if Danny is correct that it doesn't go through Shapeshift, or whether you're correct, obviously this implementation of the currency is not going to be the big mover and shaker. It's going to be getting people to have primary adoption, right? And that is small, but I will say there is a growing trend towards businesses adopting Dash. People like us, admittedly it's small, but it's growing, getting businesses to directly accept Dash. And that's the important thing. It's small now. Bitcoin itself, though, was this small once. And I'm not saying that we could just assume that it's going to balloon and be utterly successful, but that trend is there. And so that's what I think Dash is in part relying on. And I think that's legitimate to wait and see what happens with a direct adoption of Dash.
Let's get back to your 3 points real quick. What were they again? I remember the third one about diversification. What were the first two? One was technical updates, right?
One was the improvements to the software.
Okay.
That allow all sorts of functionality.
Okay. And what about the second one?
The second one was
leading to the price rise.
The second one was, again, seemingly mutually contradictory or exclusive with the third, but both can exist. As Bitcoin rose, Dash had a big rise too. That might have been in tandem.
Yes.
And then, of course, the third one is people moving out of Bitcoin into not just Dash, but other currencies.
Okay, so the second one is easy to tackle. Look, the rising tide lifts all boats, right? I mean, when the stock market is up, the crappiest company is going to go up too, right? When the stock market goes down, some things go down faster than others, right? So that's fine.
But the crappy companies aren't necessarily revealed until the tide goes back down. So, admittedly, you could be right. You could predict right now Dash will go back down in the next whatever.
Right.
But so if it were to weather that storm, that could be a good indication. One thing I do want to quickly get to that we haven't talked about, though, is I think a big key here that we've keep kind of touching on and moving away from is if the narrative you give us about the Instamine with Dash and all that is true, and obviously a lot of the elements you've given us are indisputable facts that no one disagrees with per se. It's just a question of what are the interpretation of it.
Correct.
And that we'll leave that up to our listeners to do their research based on this excellent discussion and to come to their own conclusions, and also to ask more professional opinions, like you said you do, which we try to do too. Is when we don't know, we try to ask people who are as expert as possible. But my question is, let's just say the worst case scenario of what you described is true. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, or that needs to just be ignored. Does that necessarily spell bad news for the future of Dash as a alternative digital crypto, as an alternative cryptocurrency for people? In other words, if Dash has 2.5-minute transaction times, instant authorization, if the evolution suite that they're bringing out will add all this excellent functionality for a cryptocurrency, and they have a pretty competent software team behind them. I'm not an expert to say that, but the team we've had on, the members seem pretty competent.
The ones that I've been dealing with behind the scenes have been doing a really good job.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? You guys aren't qualified to make that call,
right?
And if you do go and speak to 15 to 20 full-time Bitcoin Core engineers or the 100 plus additional Bitcoin Core contributors, they will give you the complete opposite opinion about the skill set of the Dash developers.
Taking your statement at your word, and I'm not saying that you're not saying the truth, but let's just say there was an unintentional a bit of exaggeration to that. It could be all of them.
It was a little exaggerated.
I will say though that I have noticed bias in people who I know to be way more advanced in this space than I am, and it has little to nothing to do with their technical understanding or technical critique of altcoins. One person in particular, I won't name, very intelligent person, excellent, good friend, excellent guy, and not the only one.
Scrooge McAltcoin.
Can be critical of altcoins when the impression you get is you get a sense of bias that it's more than simply that it's a sort of outright dismissal rather than I've completely thought this out technically and I have a technical argument as to why. I'm saying that could also be the case, and there is reason to believe that could be the case with some of those people, if not many of them, especially since there is an incentive, as always, to push your own horse. Right. You know what I'm saying? Well, to be fair.
Here's how I break down altcoins, right? I kind of break them down into generally three categories. Maybe it's a little complicated. So I break it down as, was the coin fairly launched? And is the coin being fairly operated? If both of those are a no, then it's in a really bad category for me. For me, it falls right into the scam category. Then we're dealing with, was the coin fairly launched? And is the coin being fairly operated? Well, it could have been fairly launched, but now there is questions about how it's being operated. That's also bad.
And maybe I missed it. What are the questions about how it's being operated?
Like a fairly launched coin, for example, to me, proof of stake is very, very bad, right?
You're saying there's effective proof of stake because of the miners? And explain that if you can.
Well, I don't want to get into the whole. To me, proof of stake is not innovative at all. Uh-huh. To me, proof of work is the innovation here. If your coin isn't proof of work, I don't even consider you a blockchain.
Well, but isn't it proof of work?
Well, I'm sorry. If it's proof of stake, if your coin is proof of stake,
right.
You're not a blockchain in my view.
No, and fair enough, and I can even grasp in my simple understanding of the proof of stake as to why, but. Isn't it proof of work, though? Why would you say it's effectively proof of stake? Am I mistaken?
No, you're mistaken. Or maybe I misspoke.
Well, what do the miners do then?
In what? In proof of stake? There are no miners.
The Dash miners.
Well, the Dash miners Dash is half proof of stake, right? Because half the mining reward goes to master nodes, which is proof of stake. You're staking 1,000 Dash, and you're getting a mining reward for staking. So to me, Dash is 40% proof of work, 40% proof of stake, and 10% 45. Whatever those numbers are, Dash is at least half proof of work and half proof of stake.
Okay, I see your elaboration there. Right? Okay, that makes more sense.
So to me, that's not well run. And Dash had questionable beginnings. Now, you can also have coins where that had and like a Litecoin. To me, it's hard for me to pick on Litecoin. It had a very fair launch, and it's being run by a decentralized developer team, which is pretty good from what I'm hearing from other technical people. It never had any kind of issues. So Litecoin, to me, is a legitimate, not scammy altcoin. Now, having said that, I do not think Litecoin is going to succeed. So
now, but is that because you don't think any altcoin is going to succeed, or
I don't think any altcoin we currently have is going that would succeed. But
I guess let me get back to kind of your let's say segregated witness, neither segregated witness nor any. Do you? And actually, I forget.
Of course.
So you still see it surviving, but just for big trans.
I believe that it
but
will.
would that not leave space for, in a conceptual way,
it opens up
because to a coin that's only for big transactions doesn't exist. So couldn't an altcoin fill in the space if big?
It is in best position to do that. Yeah, it's highly unlikely, but it is possible. Litecoin is in best position to adopt SegWit as well.
I was going to ask you about bandwagon, and it's immaterial to the success of the coin. They just want to look like Bitcoin or get ahead of the curve, or is it truly a smart adoption on their part?
Well, I'm a huge supporter of SegWit, so I think it's a very smart adoption on their part.
Was it needed though? For Litecoin.
I believe it is needed for Litecoin as well, only because it solves the same problems that it solves in Litecoin. I'm not sure if Litecoin has a transaction malleability problem. I don't know. I don't believe that it has, but SegWit solves more problems than just a transaction malleability.
Right.
But one of the reasons they're doing it is because the biggest reason why they're doing it is because SegWit, again, in my opinion, was developed by the smartest engineers potentially in the world, but certainly in Bitcoin. So they are more than happy to take the piece of code that was developed by competent developers because it's good and it helps their ecosystem as well, so that they can then take Lightning code, which was developed for SegWit as the underlying layer. So they're adopting, so Litecoin primarily is not really adopting SegWit to solve their problems. They're adopting SegWit so they can then use Lightning code developed by the same group of core developers, well, different guys, but in the same group of core developers, to then put in Lightning Network to try and fully scale Litecoin. And if they do it and the codes are successful, there won't be any more Bitcoin scaling debates. If people see Litecoin adopting these things to do microtransactions, the Bitcoin community will forgo any kind of fork and try to adopt those same things, because there is no interest in the Bitcoin community to have it be only for big transactions when Litecoin takes over the microtransaction market. There's no incentive for that. And Litecoin understands this also, and Charlie Lee understands it also. He's the creator of Litecoin. He's a big believer in Bitcoin, and I'm kind of glad Litecoin.
Doesn't he work for Coinbase?
He works for right. And this is another thing that I always say. This is how I know that Charlie Lee wasn't a scammer. He has a job. Him creating Litecoin didn't make him rich from Litecoin. He didn't have a competitive advantage on the coin he created. Satoshi did, because we didn't know it was going to succeed or have any value at first. But Charlie Lee launched his coin as fairly as possible, and that's why he has a job now, because he wanted to do it for the community. And I think Litecoin is an excellent test net where we can test something like SegWit and Lightning in a real life environment with money on the line. And when people see these pieces of code working well in Litecoin, they will be way more open to using that as the scaling solution for Bitcoin. So I'm kind of glad Litecoin is around.
Interesting. No, interesting response. Well, let me ask you, based on something you said, total heresy on my part, but just kind of a thought experiment question. You said that even unlike Bitcoin, Satoshi had an undue mining advantage or distribution advantage. Is there any possibility that Bitcoin could be a scam based on that in any sort of way?
Well, my first episode of Crypto Scam explored that possibility. On the first episode of Crypto Scam, I sat down with another Bitcoin supporter, but who can be skeptical, and we considered all these possibilities. What if Satoshi, or the group of Satoshi, what if they were like a CIA front, right? What happens if Satoshi shows up tomorrow and tries to move 1 million coins that he supposedly has, right? We went over.
Would that not be a scam?
Well, that's what we discussed in my podcast. It would be a problem. We also debated what would Satoshi's motivation be for doing that. Why would he want to ruin his own project and create insane price volatility?
Except that question has certain implicit assumptions in it that I don't think you can make. In other words, like he even said, what if Satoshi was CIA? And I'm not asserting that, but I'm saying, why would he want to destroy his own project? That's assuming that he was this just this guy who came up with this great solution to a problem, this new technology, and wanted it to succeed. Right. If he wasn't that, if there was something more devious going on, obviously that would not matter.
But that alone will not kill Bitcoin. It will maybe set us back 6 months. It'll cause giant volatility. It'll cause some panic. But you know what? If Satoshi is removed from his Bitcoins and they spread around the ecosystem, it will make it even stronger a year later. Same case with Roger Ver, right? If Roger Ver happens to end up in a situation where he is removed from his coins and they spread around the community, it only diversifies Bitcoin.
Couldn't you say that about Dash? Let's say that an undue amount of Dash is held in the hands of the developers. Now, if the developers keep it, that creates a sort of artificial scarcity that you could argue benefits other people by keeping the price high for them or for not diluting their own market, right? If they were to dump it, though, temporary chaos or bad stuff, but then that Dash would spread to other people. Couldn't the Dash network survive that if that was the case? Or what would you say?
I believe, they could.
Okay.
They could. They can survive that. In fact, that would probably be a good thing for Dash. That would probably be a good thing for Dash. They should have done this in the very, very early days. That the honest thing to do after that Instamine, and they have 2 million coins, the honest thing to do is to put those coins back and say, hey, we screwed up. We don't want to relaunch the coin, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, let's say, 95% of this 2 million coins or whatever it is they mined, and they're going to say, we will add, 1% or a fraction of that for every mining reward that comes in next, and kind of disperse it back into the economy. And Satoshi can do the same, right? Say, people always worry, what happens when the mining reward drops to less than 1 Bitcoin? What happens? And one of the solutions I proposed is, well, let's say Satoshi isn't a malicious player, and let's say he's playing possum. Let's say he's still alive. He comes back in 15 years, when mining reward is under 1 Bitcoin and it's a little nervous, will miners still be competitive? He'd come out and say, hey, I have 500,000 coins. I will add 2 coins for every new mining block that is found to the next guy.
But that would still be a temporary solution.
It will be sure, but it's a solution for another 6 to 7 years, while smart people come up with solutions. This is all Bitcoin has ever done is put the smartest people in the room to solve the next problem.
I wasn't there. No, I'm just kidding.
I wasn't there either.
That's why the problem. That's why problems got so.
That's exactly that's why solutions are had.
Right.
Well, let me ask him a question.
And again, I'm being very hypothetical. People can disagree with me on that.
Mining? Everybody thinks you could. It costs all this massive amount of money to attack Bitcoin because of the mining network. Well, why can't you just spam it? With one, say 1 penny transactions, and I'm paying 70 cents, I send 5 of them every second.
You know why you can't spam it? Because the transaction fees are a little high right now to spam it, which is a good thing.
But if somebody wanted to destroy the network, the high transaction fees or whatever, they only need 5 per second. A government or somebody malicious could do that.
Right, but if they
it would be cheaper to say that it takes all these billions of dollars to match the mining to beat the system is not actually true. If you could just do that,
going back to your question, Danny, if someone wants to do that, if they're gonna throw in 100,000 2-penny transactions. What kind of mining fee are they going to attach to them? Obviously, they're not going to attach a 36-cent mining fee. I just have to send someone $1, a new Bitcoiner. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll show you how Bitcoin works. Let me send you $1. And in the wallet that I was using, the smallest fee I could put in is 36 cents. So technically, I paid 36% of a transaction fee. right? And it sounds bad. It really, really does. But I checked, and if I was to send him $500, I would have also paid a 36-cent transaction fee, right?
Of course.
So if you're going to spam the network right now with 2-cent transactions, if you're going to, you wouldn't do it with a 36-cent fee.
Well,
you would do it at no fee, and at no fee, they would just sit there for a month to clear.
And I have a second part to that question: is how would SegWit make that different? How do you think that would change?
Well, from the beginning, like during the debate with Roger, the moment SegWit activates, it immediately doubles the capacity per block. So it can, I mean, the block size remains the same at 1 megabyte, but you can stick, but it restructures. It restructures how much space that transaction takes up, right? So let's say that $1 transaction that I sent took up 1 kilobyte of the 1 megabyte block. With SegWit, it will take up half of that. It will take up half a kilobyte. So even though the block size remains the same, the amount of space each transaction takes up in the block is significantly less. Okay? And if everyone starts using SegWit, that can go up to 3.5 times, 4 times maximum. Under perfect conditions, SegWit would multiply our current capacity times 4 while keeping the block size at 1 megabyte under the most optimal conditions. And under the worst possible conditions, which is almost not going to happen with SegWit, you're back to our current 1 megabyte block.
Yeah. I wanted to say something else.
So does that help?
We're not a picture that Dash is better than Bitcoin. This is something that we do want to avoid. While other people do say this, we don't agree with that.
No, okay, no.
So I mean, I think they're both good. They both have their need, but we're not going to sit here and say
we're just trying to
that one's better than the other.
By the way, just one more comment on the spam thing. If you increase the block size to 2 megabytes to 4 megabytes, it'll be the spam problem would be worse, because then someone can spam the network, and next thing you know, in 1 month, a 2 megabyte block is full because of spam transactions, because transactions are now cheaper. Fine, let's increase it to 4. And then some guy is bored.